spend some time with me this morning. I know you're probably thinking to yourself, who wouldn't want to come and listen to a marketing presentation from a total stranger about a topic I have nothing, know nothing about at this point, but nonetheless, I'm glad that you're all here. I would love to do a quick poll if we could. First of all, would you raise your hand, please, if you're a student here? And faculty? And staff? Great. So these would be my colleagues. I love it. As Jody said, I work for Colorado Open Lands. We are a statewide nonprofit land trust, and what that means is that we work to conserve and protect Colorado's remaining land and water resources. And what my role really is there as Director of Communications, land conservation is a highly technical, it's legal contracts, it's real estate transactions, it's banking forms. I take all that and I turn it into this. So I'm taking the what is land conservation? It's conservation easements, it's real estate transactions, and I turn it into why. I translate the benefits. So the benefits are places to play outside, recharge your spirit, get physical activity. It's agriculture, providing you with local foods, preserving the state's ranching tradition. And it's places for things like this beautiful pronghorn antelope to run around and eat and drink and thrive. So when you think of me as my role in communications, it's a translator, simplify, communicate benefits. Now, Colorado Open Lands works statewide, as I mentioned, and one of our often partners is Park County, Colorado. And they engaged us to help them defend an organization called the Park County Land and Water Trust Fund. Now this was originally approved by voters in 1997. It's a 1% sales tax on everything they buy in Park County. And the reason that it was originally approved was a practice called buy and dry. Does anyone know what that is? Buy and dry, it's when you take a piece of land that has senior water rights on it, you buy the land for the water rights, you take the water, leave the land. And when this practice is done in great enough quantity, we could functionally, it's not hyperbolic to say that we could find ourselves in a new Dust Bowl. So as the Front Range continues to grow, all along the I-25 corridor, Fort Collins to Colorado Springs, all these municipalities, they need more water to be able for people to drink and play and water their lawns. So they buy water from other entities. By the 70s, 80s, 90s, 80% of Park County's water had been purchased by other interests, municipalities in the Front Range. That water was being taken off the land. So the voters organized, they passed, this 1% sales tax to non-labor defense. And like many tax bills, they built into it a sunset. So this tax would last for 20 years unless it was renewed. That's where we came in. As a partner of theirs, small county government, no one has time to do anything. They asked Colorado Open Lands to step in and help them with this problem. Now, the trust fund is raised, in its incipient year it was $350,000. These days we're getting close to $1 million annually for land and water preservation. So it's excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, I can't breathe through my nose, so if I take some big gulping breaths. I'm just trying not to pass out. So here's the situation. And I want to show you Park County. If you're not familiar where it is, if you start in Denver and you get on Hamden, that's Highway 285. Highway 285 goes right on down. And the part that most people are most familiar with probably would be Kenosha Pass. That's where the Colorado Trail bisects. And that's one of the best spots in the state, or at least easily accessible from the Front Range for the phrase that I hate, which is leaf peeping. for looking at fall foliage. There's beautiful aspens there. And wide open views, thanks in large part to land conservation. So, this county, it takes about an hour and a half to get from Bailey to Guffey. It's very large. There aren't any really big population centers. Everyone's spread out. And it currently has 17,000 residents. The median age is on the older side for a median, 49, and the county is 93% white. So that just gives you kind of the lay of the land there. So we're going to get a little marketing 101 sprinkled in here, and we'll see about getting some course credit maybe for the students in the audience. So in marketing, you start with something called situation analysis. And there are many frameworks for this. I use one called SWOT analysis. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So as far as strengths go, the fund it's done a lot of really good work in the county. It's been approved once before, and there's a strong land ethic in the area. When I say land ethic, I mean people inherently understand that land and water has value, that preserving the environment is something that is important. We have a few weaknesses. It was a long ballot last year. Colorado Open Lands, as a 501c3 nonprofit, can only educate, we can't lobby. And that really limited my messaging. I couldn't say, vote yes on 1A. I could say, there is a trust fund, and it's up for renewal. I can't say vote for it. So that was a big handicap. We had a tiny budget. We had $27,000 to do this. And the first meeting that I had about it was on August 6th. I just looked this up. So we literally had 3 months, less than 100 days to do an entire political campaign. It isn't really a campaign. It's an education advocacy effort. But we have some opportunities. We have many friends on the ground. Colorado Open Lands had been working in Park County for 20, 30 years, and in that time we had good relationships with the county commissioner, with the director of Parks and Open Space. We have friends. And when I say leverage landowners, we also had good relationships with people that could give us access to the projects that the trust fund had completed. So a lot of them are on private land, but we could still get out there and film these places that people would recognize as boons to their community. And we have a few threats. The area population had grown since 1997. In 1997, it was about 12,000 people. Now it's 17,000. That is plenty of room to swing an election. And there's lots of new folks that will be unfamiliar with the previous water battle because they're new residents. They might not have even known that there ever was a threat. There's kind of a general anti-tax sentiment in the area. This is Red County. Trump won it by he won 59% of the vote. And not here to litigate his platform right now, but he's not exactly pro-tax, pro-big government, pro-environment. So that scared us in terms of renewing this program. So we've got our budget, time to develop a plan. We want to leverage inexpensive channels as much as possible. So that means using a lot of digital media, building a website, social media, and then getting into some of the local newspapers. We want to engage those third-party validators. This will come as a shock to no one, but people in Colorado's rural counties do not like people from the Front Range coming in and telling them what to do. So we need to use local voices, prominent local figures as much as possible. And we hope to assign some bylines to some ghostwritten commentary that we could get into some papers. Put a lot of eggs in one basket. This is bad advice for investments or chicken farmers, I guess, but in marketing, it's actually a great idea. If you have a limited budget, your media buy should be as concentrated and focused as possible. So you don't want to do one billboard, one newspaper ad, one radio ad. Take one thing, do it really well. And then number 4, the messaging prioritizes water over land. So this is the Land and Water Trust Fund. It's a long name. Because we can't name the ballot initiative, we wanted to stick to pretty simple messaging. So we said a lot of water, 1% sales tax. Water, 1% sales tax. Try to simplify it as much as we could. Now this is part of my kind of personal marketing philosophy that I just wanted to share. And search committee is probably tired of hearing me talk about it. But you've got your what, and you've got your why. And you always hear politicians especially talking about capturing hearts and minds. So our minds respond to what and data. Hearts respond to why and story. And we talk about the physiological and anatomical differences between hearts and minds another time, but you know what I'm getting at. Picture a politician giving a stump speech and saying, in my area, the paper plant shut down and it affected 1,000 people. And here with me I have John Doe, who lost his job and then he lost his house. He is one of just thousands of people that were affected by this closure. Let me fix it for you. So you're going from data, the thousands, to this one person, making it personal, giving them a face to put on the problem, and then zooming back out, going back to, these are all the people, he's just one of the many affected. So here's our action item timeline. Like I said, we had a very short amount of time to work on this. In August, we developed the plan and the budget. We decided to earmark some money for a video shoot so we could literally get the local faces in front of people, people that they would recognize in the community. We developed a visual identity. I would never recommend this again, but we did a logo in about one day. And we worked to gather existing assets, which are the data. Where have all the projects been that the trust fund has helped? We gathered photography. There are a lot of people that live there that have access to a lot more photography than I do, and to work to gather stories. I joined a lot of online communities to be a mouthpiece for the trust fund, and some of them were absolute cesspools, but sometimes you gotta get in the muck. Political commentary is not a pretty place. We'll just leave it at that. And we bought a list of likely voters of who is likely to vote, period, in this county. And we decided to send our postcard mailings to all of those people. In September, we bought a domain, friendsofparkcountylandandwater.org. We built a website. We shot video interviews. I think we interviewed between 10 and 12 community leaders. We wrote some guest commentary pieces for local press. Became active in those online communities, built out the Facebook group. We asked local figures to assist with our social media numbers. So I would say to John Woodward, who's the commissioner of the Land and Water Trust Fund board, can you repost this for me? Will you, signal boost for me? And they were happy to do it. We designed the postcard campaign. Now the postcards, we ended up having budget to do one per week for 5 weeks in October, which is great. Had some guest commentary published, completed and premiered the video, and continued to engage in social media and message boards. And now we're driving traffic to the video as much as we can. And to continue to organize the Land and Water Trust Fund accomplishments on the website. This is another kind of very low-cost resource that we could develop. Again, local governments, they don't have a lot of time and capacity. This involved me going through 20 years of meeting minutes to flesh out what the trust fund had invested in, and I built out an interactive map on the website so that people could see, again, huge county. If I live up here, are there projects that affect me, that are local to my community, that feel real to me? So it was important to go through, build out those records. And then in November, there's no time left, you can read my dumb joke. I wanted to go electioneer. I wanted to go sit outside the polling place with a sign that said, ask me about the trust fund. But then some of our local partners said, no one goes to the polling places in these counties. They vote by mail. The polling places are too disparate, too hard to get to. Don't bother. I was excited though. So now I want to show you some of the deliverables, what we actually produced. This are some screenshots from our Facebook page. That's our one-day logo. We parsed the video out into little chunks and used Facebook promotions to get additional reach there. These are some of the communities I joined. Actually, the most active one was called Park County Elections, I think, and that has been subsequently shut down, so it didn't show up when I screenshot it. And I apologize for some of the quality on these. These are all screenshots, these next few. This is a screenshot from our website. Again, we tried to fill it with a lot of photography and try to just convey the importance of how this fund it maintains Park County's character. And then you'll see here, remember to vote. Don't vote for this, just vote, as much as I can say. Here's the map that I was talking about, and this goes down about, twice again, as long as it is here. This was interactive, so if you would click on one of the properties, it would tell you as much information as I could glean, again, from, in some case, 20-year-old meeting notes. And then you'll see here, we added in some local press coverage when it was available. This is one of our postcards. So again, median age, 49, people are 93% white, trying to speak to that. A lot of these people have kids and grandkids. And using children in our imagery reinforces the idea that we need to save water for the future, that we want our children to have the same access to water that we had when we were children. And this is just the front. The back I thought would be too lengthy or too difficult to read on a screen, but that's where we kind of delve into what's the trust fund. 1% sales tax water, 1% sales tax water. Here's another one. We did get a little bit scary negative with the messaging, which I don't typically like to do, but unfortunately the data bears out that that works in political campaigns. This is true, by the way. We are set to gain 3 million new residents, and I mean, here we're trying to scare them a little bit. Can you keep your water? You want to keep your water. This will help you keep your water. This is an article that we had published in the Fair Play Flume by a woman named Leona Nelson. She runs the Shawnee Trading Post. We had written part of it, and then she took it and rewrote a good portion of it, which is great. If it's got her byline, we wanted to have her voice. Great Outdoors Colorado is another really important partner for Colorado Open Lands. You may know them. They get their funding from the state lottery proceeds. They get about $55 million a year for parks and open space. And they have an enormous network. So we asked them if they would write a story for us. They wrote one, put it on their blog, which has enormous reach, far beyond Park County, but again, can't hurt. It's something else for me to post to those social media communities. And then this piece was actually written by my colleague, Ben Lenth, who works out of our Salida office. This is in the Ute Country News, which is a monthly paper. And then next I want to show you just a small clip from the video that we had done. It's the big piece is about 9 minutes long, but this is just 3. And you'll see some of these local voices, how they talk about it. Now, if you lived in Park County, these people would be familiar to you by and large. Do I need to just hit play here?
Yes. Just hit play.
Okay. The mouse does not appear to be responding.
It's extended.
Oh, shoot.
You can find a mouse anywhere.
Parks and Wildlife and other agencies kind of thinking outside the box to protect this. It's really a benefit. I've been doing this job for 30 plus years, and I still get excited if I see an eagle flying, or I see a herd of elk, or I see an antelope fawn. I really hope that people have the same kind of thought that when they see something unique, they should stop and look at it. Without the Land and Water Trust Fund, the Klein Ranch wouldn't happen. It definitely was the thing that pushed it over.
Thanks to the Land and Water Trust Fund, we can continue on with that ranching tradition, and water is the lifeblood of our ranch. We have to have the river to survive.
We're proud of having a pristine wetland in the center of town. But more than that, it's a sense of community. I just really hope that over the next 50 years, we can maintain that agricultural heritage that keeps the wide open spaces in Park County, and to maintain that for the next generation as Denver and Colorado Springs continue to encroach on us.
From 1998, we've protected and have conserved over 18,000 acres. We have conserved and have stream restoration projects on over 40 miles of streams and rivers in Park County, and we've protected over 7,000 acres of wetlands. Park County is a big county, but those are still big numbers.
History is the story of our lives. It's a story of those just before us. It's a story of our parents. It's a story of all who have shared the same views, the same landscapes, the same water. It's not just about us. It's about people in the past, people in the future.
Over the years, the Land and Water Trust Fund has been a direct supporter of all of this work and ability for us to really move the field of stream restoration forward.
We're getting the freshest, cleanest water. It's just fallen. We have actually the first chance to mess it up. So we don't want to be the ones to mess it up. A lot of water storage happens up here in these big riparian systems, in these wetlands that maintain steady flow all the way down.
The trust fund really makes it so that we can keep on ranching. It continues on through generations. And it can continue on for the next
100, 200 years.
We all want to protect what we have. We don't want to lose the beauty and the grandeur of these beautiful rivers. We don't want to lose that pure water. We want to protect it and keep it for future generations. This is what living in the West is all about. It's our responsibility, and if we don't take care of it, nobody else will.
This is what I wanted to avoid. And that's the Colorado Open Lands YouTube account. This has nothing to do with my viewing history personally. So, after all this, all these communications have been out to all these 9,000 likely voters. This is the language that actually ended up on the ballot, and I want to read it to you. This is all one sentence. This is what these people had to glean from our communications, that this is what we were talking about. So, without increasing taxes, shall the existing Park County 1% sales tax approved as a referendum 1A by the Park County electors on November 7th, 1997 be reauthorized and extended annually for the period beginning January 1st, 2019 and ending on December 31st, 2028, comma, and shall the monies received from such sales tax continue to be received and spent by the county in any year without regard to any spending, revenue raising, or other constitutional limitation, comma, with the revenues derived from such 1% sales tax continuing to be used exclusively for the preservation, protection, acquisition, improvement, and maintenance of Park County's remaining water resources and lands in Park County containing associated water rights and water resources. We hope they got there. And then my last slide, thankfully they did. The ballot ended up passing with 64% of the vote. Going to sleep that night, the election results weren't entirely clear yet, and you'll see actually the results listed on their clerk and recorder's page are still not the official results, but the board, the commissioners eventually let us know that it did pass. This was approved for the next 10 years, and just, we couldn't be happier. So that is a marketing campaign in a microcosm, 3 months long, county budget. We did as much as we can with the resources that were available to us, and we were lucky enough to be successful. And that is my presentation. So I think we have plenty of time for questions.
Sure do.
I would love to hear some.
Thank you for your presentation. I guess I'm curious, you've spent the last 10 years really focused on environmental issues and policies. What's kind of drawn you to the world of higher education and to a college of education in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always felt really at home and enlivened in this environment. I love being on campus. I was telling the search committee, I love the smell of this building. I'm happy to be here. As far as working in the environmental field, there, I'll be honest with you, there isn't a lot of opportunity for growth for someone in my position. So I've been the director of communications for 5 years at Colorado Open Lands. Before that, I came over as part of a merger from a community foundation, Colorado Conservation Trust. But functionally, I haven't been in a job interview in 10 years. I like the environmental world. It's not the one value that drives me in my life necessarily. I'm happy to be there. My general marketing philosophy is, it's part of the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. Where can I use my skills as a marketer and as someone that has been trained in this and has talent in it, that I can be productive towards society, not hurt anybody. We were talking in my first interview about how if you work in advertising, you're necessarily creating a deficit in someone. You're saying, you're not good enough as you are, you need this. So as far as higher education in specific, it was a good opportunity. I won't lie to you and say my dream is to serve educators. It's not necessarily. My dream is to use my time and talent towards ends that I think improve the world. And I love the Margaret's mission. It has such a powerful verb in it that I've never heard before. Unleash the power of learning. I mean, I'm picturing like Hoover Dam, like blows a hole in it. We're just unleashing this power. I've never heard that in a mission. I love it. So this seems like a great place for someone like me to be. I also feel like if your sense of identity is so tied to what you do, you never get to turn off, and that can lead to burnout. And I don't, anyone that says, this is me, this is my life, I don't wanna malign that instinct or that sense. That wouldn't be healthy for me. That was probably more honest than it was appropriate.
Appreciate it.
What else?
Well, if I could build on that, Dr. Anthony's question a little bit. As you think about maybe translating this work and these skills into marketing and communication for the projects and the research that faculty are engaged in and the incredible maybe accomplishments of our students and the great work that staff are doing, what excites you and then what gives you a little bit of caution?
Sure. Yeah, great question. You know, I need to know a little bit more about some concrete examples before I can maybe fully answer that question. Before I got here today, I had a phone screen with Sean, and then we had a 25-minute virtual interview. So there's still a lot that I need to learn about. I don't have any misgivings or reservations thus far, but I want to use the skills and the talent that I have to amplify the voices and the accomplishments of the people in this room, in this building, and in the broader community. I'm sorry, that's not entirely an answer, but until I get more information, I don't know if I have enough to detail anything that gives me pause, or even that I'm particularly excited about. I need more. There's so much reading I've done already, and I still feel like don't have my hands around it, but I can pledge to you that I will get there, and if I'm given this position, I'll come and meet with you in a month and we can talk about it. Yes.
So I apologize, I was late. I was running from another meeting that ran super far over, so but I'm glad to still be able to be here and for your patience with me walking in. Since you've worked in this sort of nonprofit space before, can you talk about any campaigns, just very briefly, that you've run or managed around developing philanthropic resources for priority?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a department of one at Colorado Open Lands. Our philanthropy department is 4 people, and I work with them probably the closest of all, because communications functionally serves serves philanthropy in a lot of ways. So anything that I put out, we have 3 major audiences in mind, and the first one is always donors. So everything I do is functionally donor focused. But I'll tell you one project that I worked on in particular. It's called Conserved Colorado. It is a directory of the goods and services that you can buy directly from the owners of conserved land. So John Woodward, that guy that said, this is a big county, but these are big numbers, he's a cattle rancher. His family's been running cattle for 150 years, right on the 285 corridor. He sells beef direct to consumers, and you can go to our directory, find that beef, you can buy it from him, you come home with a trunk full of vacuum sealed beef, and then beef for the next 2 years, because the smallest quantity you can buy is half a cow. So this directory is, it was aimed as a function to drive philanthropy towards Colorado Open Lands in 2 ways, by saying, number one, we are landowner focused. We have an investment in the continued success of these farms and ranches. We want to help them be successful because that allows us to be successful. And secondly, it is a way for donors to more strongly identify with the work. So if you can go meet John Woodward and walk his ranch, and your shoes get muddy, and he's telling you all his charming colloquialisms, you feel more connected to conservation broadly, him specifically. Get some great photos for Instagram. It's a really authentic experience. So Conserved Colorado, we launched it 3 years ago-ish, And that campaign has consisted of a lot of electronic communications. Colored Open Lands has a really big, for an organization our size, email subscription list. It's on our website, it has its own website. We've done print mailings on it. And that really, the function of that program was to give donors another way to connect with the world of conservation.
Sounds like a great prospect development.
Yes. No poaching. I saw something there.
I'll get another question. So, as I'm sure you've read, we have more than just educators that come out of this college, and we have a ton of alumni and students and faculty doing incredible work. Sometimes it's all happening at once. And so can you talk about a time where you have had to manage competing priorities, where every priority seemed like it was the most important?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this kind of came up in the search committee this morning. That's my life, as being a department of one person. I am pulled in different directions constantly, and is this a whiteboard?
It is.
This is a marker. Great. Are we sure? I don't know.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the axis I draw myself. On one axis you've got important, and the other axis you've got urgent. And everything ends up somewhere on this board. Urgent usually gets priority, it just does. But you have to make sure that you're managing things and delivering things that are important as well. But I mean, at some point you have to choose. I would look to guidance from, if I were dealing with deadlines that truly cannot be moved, I would talk to the people that ordered the project, would talk to the dean, help me prioritize, I don't know. And then hopefully you amongst yourselves, one of you could give a little and we could figure out what needed to be done first. Good question. Jody.
Sorry, Josh. You go ahead. I'm on.
Well, I was just going to ask, so you've kind of showcased a number of different tools in the digital space, the print space, PR, for marketing. Can you speak to kind of one of your favorites and why that might be your favorite?
I love this question. I would say for me, my favorite part is branding and visual identity. I'm a creative person. I get itchy if I don't have a project going on, even in my personal life. Like, I am driven by and gratified by creation, and especially in a visual medium. So if I can make something beautiful out of nothing, that makes me really happy.
Question, when you work in marketing and in many ways admissions too, you are looking for opportunities to create buy-in or trust with faculty, similar to Dr. Kiyama's question about work representing stories of expertise that happen in the building. So what are some tactics or philosophies that you have related to creating buy-in and trust when you are entrusted with being the voice of, for example, research methods and statistics? You are not an expert. I think so. Maybe you're not an expert in research methods.
Give me some time.
But you're entrusted with telling the story. And I would think, maybe you saw that example, like working with a rancher. You're not a rancher, but you're telling a story. So what type of tactics or philosophies do you have related to being the voice of something you are not the expert in?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, you have to meet people where they are. So whatever environment that rancher or that professor would be most comfortable in, I go there. I think one of my greatest professional strengths is I'm a little bit of we'll mix metaphors, a mirror and a chameleon, where I can fit in a lot of places and I can kind of reflect energy that's put out toward me. I work with extremely poor farmers in the San Luis Valley, and I work with some of Colorado's biggest philanthropists at their downtown offices. So first of all, meet people where they are. give them space to tell that story. So whatever format they're most comfortable in. Some people want to write you an email and say, make this beautiful and interesting, and that's fine. Sometimes I just get bullet points, and that's fine. And that's my job, is to kind of take it all in and put out something that sums it up and puts a button on the end and has Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 to the story. And then you always go back before you put something out into the world that is representing someone. You give them a chance to offer feedback on it, and then you get one additional person to proofread it. Anything else?
One more question for you. I'm just curious, because you've talked a lot about how you're sort of a shop of one. If you came here, you would have several direct reports. I wonder if you could just talk about sort of how you see yourself managing people and how you would kind of work in that environment and make the shift from a person who's kind of the only person in the office to someone who's managing several people.
Yeah, great question. And again, the search committee and I talked about this a little bit this morning. No fault of yours, obviously, but they'll
Same page.
Yeah,
we were preparing you.
Right.
Yeah.
I have had the luxury in my professional career of being managed exceptionally well. I've only had really good bosses, and you learn a lot from a good boss. And the question that my boss often asks me, which again I covered this morning, is, what do you need from me to be successful towards these ends? And it's such a good question because it forces me to organize my thoughts, say, what do I need? And my boss is always there to provide that. So I don't have direct experience managing people, but I have a lot of experience managing teams. It's just a function of being the communications person. You have to coordinate information from lots of sources. You have to get stories, data. You have to get things that will appeal to hearts and minds, and you have to coordinate all of it. So I'm often managing, I'm part of the leadership team at Colorado Open Lands. There are 7 of us. And a lot of my job is managing projects and teams and deadlines. So I feel ready to expand into that role, but obviously be open to whatever mentorship was available from this community towards those ends. And I would hope for an environment that was really had a lot of two-way communication, so my team and I could always make sure we were on the same page.